Hello and welcome to another episode of Sharing Wisdom. I'm your host, Angie Wisdom, and today we're talking about joy, putting joy in your life on a daily basis, sparking joy, spotting joy, all things joy. Our guest is Amberly Lago. She wrote the book, Finding Joy in the Journey, and she's here to talk to us about putting joy, regardless of what's going on, regardless of the outside circumstances, your challenges, your setbacks, that there is hope and there is a way for you to put joy into your life. Well, Amberly, I'm so excited you're back on the show. And just so you know, you are the first person who has appeared twice on the show. I haven't had anyone else on
Oh my
twice.
goodness. I you made my day. I feel
Ah,
so blessed, so lucky. And thank you so much for having me back. You're amazing.
oh, well, this topic, I mean, when saw your other book and then, I got my hands on it and thank you for sending me, the reading material. It was like, first of all, the word joy, right? Like it's the number one thing people seek out. Joy, right? That's what everyone wants.
Yeah. I think joy is like, yeah, the thing, one of the reasons I was inspired to write this book is because I think, there are some people that think that they can't ever have joy again because whether it's a health diagnosis, like, for me, I was diagnosed with complex regional pain syndrome and, told I'd never be able to walk again or work again. And my work is what brought me so much joy. And I thought, well, you know what I've learned is that actually pain and joy can coexist and we get to
Mhm.
choose to build upon the joy, and it's possible to have more joy in our life. But just like we go to the gym to work out to get stronger, we don't work out once and go, okay, now I'm superwoman and I'm just gonna be strong and look like Halle Berry, it's like,
Yeah.
no, we work on that every day. We work on our mindset every day. We work on joy spotting every day. That's something I actively do is I go out and search for things that bring me joy. And, just a couple of days ago, the weather here in Texas was finally nice and it felt like a beautiful sunny California day. It was 70 degrees and I intentionally went out to just soak up some sun.
Mm.
I met my girlfriend who lives down the street and she wanted to get together and talk. And I said, well, can we walk and talk? Because moving my body brings me joy and smiling at people and seeing them smile back brings me joy. So I think it's something that we can have and that we get to choose, and we can build it even more by joy spotting and then choosing
Mhm.
to be a joy sparker in the world.
I love it. I love it. And, joy outside of, say, challenges, situations, hardships, all of that, I think is easier to find, right? Like most people who are not going through something right now, it's easy to think about spotting joy or putting the things in your life that you love. But what really touched me with your book and your story, and it's so raw and vulnerable, is the fact that it can coexist, that yours is joy through the journey. So I feel like people often think like, well, I can't have joy while I'm going through this. I can't have joy when I'm suffering through this trauma or this setback or this challenge, that it is separated and only joy comes in those moments of, greatness. But as you said, you took the line, right out of my notes here that I wanted to talk about. One of the first things is that it can coexist. So for people listening right now and going like, really? Because I'm in the dumps right now, or I've got this major setback or this challenge, or I'm not working, whatever it may be, start
Mhm.
to lead us into that. How do they coexist? How do you find joy when it feels like things just suck?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. But you know what I've discovered is having joy isn't waiting for the right circumstances to come along. It's choosing to embrace gratitude and purpose in every moment. And I'll give you an example of, like, this last year, honestly, Angie, it was hard. It was like, and that's why I open up in my new book and I share something that I had a really, like, a health scare and kind of embarrassed myself and was filled with shame, and how I decided to get through those moments. And so not only was my health really hard this past year, I was back in a wheelchair, got up out of the wheelchair, just found out I have to have another surgery, surgery number 35, but who's counting? But I thought, well, I want to have joy through the journey of life's ups and downs, whether it's with my health, whether it's with entrepreneurial challenges, because we know it's not easy. Being an
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneur, there are times when it is just hard. And I know, like, a lot of times, if you're scrolling through Instagram, it can be like, oh, well, isn't that great? Their life is awesome. And look at that magazine article, and oh, they're on that stage, and look whose podcast they're on, or whatever it may be. But sometimes we don't see the hard work and the grit that it takes behind the scenes to continue to have that resilience and continue to spark joy along the way. Because if we don't have our health, we don't have joy, what's the point? I feel like life, yes, we're going to have ups and downs, but just knowing that there is a way to spark more joy. I really I feel like when we're about to do something, and especially if we're talking about God, and I talk about God a lot in this book, resistance will come. Resistance is going to be there. And my goodness, writing this book, I had the opportunity to test every single one of these actionable steps that I give in the book time and time again. An example of that was, so I had a therapy dog. I mean, this little ball of fur was pure, unconditional love, who gave me so much joy. This dog was with me through every single surgery that I went through. Um, and people that I meet, like, when I'm speaking at an event, they know her name. They'll come up and
Mm-hmm.
say, "Oh, Goldie was so cute when you put that little wagon on her, and she was carrying vegetables from the garden." And she was 2.5 pounds. That's how tiny she
She's
was.
tiny. Mm-hmm.
And she passed away unexpectedly. And I could not stop crying.
Mm-hmm.
And so in that moment, it wasn't that didn't want to acknowledge the pain or the feelings of just being, like, devastated when I lost our fur baby. She was a part of the family. I thought to myself, I just want to stop crying. I need a little spark of joy. I need just a reprieve from the crying. And I thought, well, I need to search for the joy. I need to do something mentally, physically, spiritually. So of course I prayed. And then I thought, well, I'm going to put the Christmas tree up. We put our Christmas tree up earlier than I'd ever put it up before, because that act of seeing the Christmas decorations and putting the tree up brings me joy. Still couldn't stop crying. And so I made a point to change my atmosphere. I think sometimes we need to change where we are, whether that's walking outside and feeling the sun on our face. Or for me, I was like, you know what? I want to go to Home Goods. I need to go see some people and smile at them and see them smile back, even if they're strangers. I just need that connection. And so I was like, I'm on a mission to do some joy spotting. And the first thing that I see when I walk into Home Goods is a sign that says joy. And I was like, okay, well, there's a God wink right there. And I smiled at every single person that I saw and talked to them. And instead of just trying to grit it out, I needed that connection. And what I learned is, I really feel like grit without connection feels like resistance, and grit with connection is resilience and sparks more joy. And so, if you're in a hard place, another thing to do is go see how you can help somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
When you help somebody, when you can ask how you can serve, when you check in even on your strong friends, to me, that is so fulfilling, and that brings me joy. And so make it your mission every day to go out there and seek joy. Do things that are in alignment with things that fill your cup, that bring more joy. And to me, that is going to the gym. And I always kid around and say, I listen to my gospel music on the way to the gym, and then I rock out to ACDC when I'm inside the gym. So do what brings you brings more joy to you.
Yeah, and so much of that is you have to know, uh, what does that for you? You have to know yourself in order to be able to figure out how to bring yourself that joy. But I think going back to what you said a minute ago, it's like you have to start with the belief. If you're in this situation, you first have to believe that they can coexist, that even though you're in the state of crying for you, depression, whatever it may be, that you can also have joy at the same time. And something that I've seen come up a lot for people, I'm curious about for you, is oftentimes people feel like it negates what their trauma is, what their depression is. And like you said earlier, it's not like you didn't want to process or grieve, Goldie being gone, but oftentimes people feel like, well, if I am joyful in this horrible situation, then there's disrespect or it's kind of negating what I truly should be feeling.
Well, I think we all, feelings are feelings and we need to let them rise to the surface. But I will tell you, my mom has joked around and said if there was a reality show about our family, nobody would believe it. And what has helped us get through some major challenges is laughter. I mean, laughter
Mhm.
is good medicine. And I say this from a place of, you know, not just my motorcycle accident and all the surgeries, but right after my motorcycle accident, and this is kind of heavy, but my brother he sits on death row. He got sentenced to death row in Texas. And, my stepfather passed away. My stepmother committed suicide. Like life was hard and we could have easily focused and gotten stuck and stayed there. But we choose to stay closely connected to God and lean on God. I always say, you know what? I need to fully rely on God. I can't do all of this by myself. And, in the mornings, I get on my knees and pray because it really does remind me how small I am and how big God is. And, um, so I just want people, I used to think that I had to do it all alone. And I think we're not wired to do hard things alone. We're wired for connection, especially through challenges. And so I think that reaching out and asking for help is probably one of the bravest things that you could do. I know it
Mhm.
saved my life when I was struggling with addiction. It took so much courage, and that was scarier than any surgery that I went through. Was having the courage to take a good hard look at myself, my life, what wasn't working, and asking for help. So if you're listening and you're like, well, I'm struggling, but I feel alone or I don't have community, there's always somebody that has gone through something similar to you, if not the same. And if you don't have community, work on building your community. And the best way you can do that is to first reach out. And you know what? I've built communities. I know this sounds kind of silly, but I've built communities through social media.
Mhm.
I have people that were diagnosed with the same nerve disease that we connect and we've become friends and they email me and I email them back. And, if we can share our experience and just have that little ounce of courage that it takes to reach out and start, asking for help or seeing how you can serve, that really changes everything. And yes, it's, important to be respectful of situations. I certainly wasn't laughing when I found out that my stepfather passed away because he was like a real dad to me and we texted every single morning. But there are little things like my mastermind members got together and these ladies got me a wind chime, and it's written on the wind chime, a scripture, and it talks about when you hear these wind chimes, let it remind you of your stepfather. And so I hear these wind chimes now, and instead of being sad, it brings me joy, just as a
Mhm.
reminder that he's still an angel in my life. And I hear that, and just that kind, act of getting me that wind chime. And now that I get to hear it, there are just so many ways that you can find that moment of joy. And like I said, it's not, stuffing it down or not acknowledging it. It's just finding different ways to get through it.
You said such a key word there when you said moment of joy. And I think that when you say that, it gives people permission that when you're in a challenging place, when you're in a dark place, when you're going through the trauma, whatever it may be, you can have the moment of joy. It doesn't mean that you erase everything that's going on, but you can find that moment. And I guess giving yourself permission, anyone listening thinking that no matter what's going on, you can give yourself permission to find the moments of joy and you deserve them.
Yeah, and I think also it's so much about self-care, and
Hmm.
I'm an overcoming people pleaser. And so often I would just want to take care of everybody else and make sure everybody else was happy. And then my cup was empty, and you can't pour from an empty cup. And so when I say self-care, yes, it's great to get a massage or do yoga, eat healthy, those things. But really, I had to take a step back, and because I was in a place where I the joy was not in my life, actually. I mean, I was on the brink of burnout, and I had to start doing self-care and, like, building a life that I really wanted, that building a life that I didn't want to escape from. Because if you're constantly people pleasing, doing things that you don't want to do, saying yes to things that your heart or your gut is telling you, don't do that. Why are you doing that? Um, it's dangerous for somebody like me who is a recovering alcoholic to have the kind of life that is not in alignment or that I want to escape from. And so I would really encourage people to go, yeah, start by pausing and reflecting on what are some of the things that bring you joy. And it could be, sitting outside in nature. It could be music. It could be dancing. Dancing brings me joy. Working out brings me joy. And it releases these chemicals. It's scientifically proven to release chemicals. I had a doctor just tell me the other day there's something called like hope chemicals
Mm.
when you work out and you move your body. I'm like, I've never heard of that. I've heard of endorphins and dopamine, but
Hmm.
but yes, there are actually chemicals that make you more happy. And I know when I go to the gym and I go in there sometimes dragging and not feeling like I want to work out, but I think about, well, if I do this, I know I'm going to feel better. I know I'm going to feel more joyful. I know I'm going to get stronger. I know it's going to increase my confidence. And sure enough, I start working out, listening to music, and I'm walking out of there dancing. I find
Hmm.
myself kind of dancing in the middle of the gym. And I embarrass my daughter so much. In fact, we were at dinner and the guy goes, it was an event that I'd spoken at. And we went to the dinner, and I try to bring my daughter for around for things as much as I can. And he looked at her and said, "Well, what's one thing that your what is one thing that your mom does that really embarrasses you?" And I'm like, "Oh no." And she
There
said,
we go.
"She dances everywhere." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, because it makes me happy. I love
Yeah.
it."
Yeah. At one point, she's going to be older and she's not going to think that's so embarrassing anymore. She's going to be like, I'm just like my mom. I'm dancing everywhere now, you know?
Well, let's hope.
But
Let's hope.
yeah. So, a couple of questions for you in there. First of all, I do want to talk about the addiction piece because I'm just so curious what was the catalyst? Because you talk a little bit about unhealthy habits and being in denial, and that also being that barrier to healing. So, where do you shift from probably having a habit that you didn't want to admit was unhealthy or that you didn't think you had a problem with to finally going like, ooh, this is not good. Like, I've got to change something.
Oh, yeah. Well, I knew the minute I started drink. So I was trying all these treatments for complex regional pain syndrome, which is like this baffling condition where your sympathetic nervous system is all out of whack, and there's a constant pain of loop, like a loop of constant pain,
Hmm.
and it's ranked highest on the pain scale. And I had tried all kinds of treatments. Nothing was working. And I remember having a glass of wine and thinking to myself, because being in the fitness industry, I was super focused on health. I was never a partier, like going to the bars. I was so focused on, I was a single mom for like years and years, almost 10 years. And I was just focused on being a mom, starting my business, getting my career going, buying us a house, keeping the roof over our head. So when I drank that wine, I thought, well, this isn't the healthiest thing to do, but if it's what I have to do to ease the pain and get through the day, then I guess I'll do it, And I was kind of like, man, why didn't the doctors just tell me to knock back a glass of wine? This kind of helps stuff down the feelings of shame and sadness and all of that too. And it worked until it didn't. And one led to another, to a whole bottle. And I knew like deep down that I had a problem. I was like, this is not the life I'm living, that I thought that I would be living. And I remember I actually had a friend of mine call me out. She was sober. She said, "Can you meet for coffee?" She hadn't seen me in a while, and she saw me, and I was like, the gig is up. I mean, if I thought that I was fooling anybody, because I wasn't like doing, I was kind of sneaking it. I didn't want people
Mm,
to know, and I was just trying desperately to get out of pain. And what would happen would it would be a constant loop of pain, because alcohol's an inflammatory. So I would wake up and the nerve pain would be even worse. And so I would drink to try to numb it out. And I met with my friend and she said, "Do you have a problem?" And I just burst into tears. I started crying and I said, "I need help." And I called another client. This was scarier than any surgery I went through, was admitting that I had a problem. But when you get radically honest with yourself, it can kick your butt a little bit, but it will set you free. That saying, "The truth will set you free,"
mhm,
it's so true, because I knew that I had a problem, and I had asked a former client of mine. I knew she was sober, if she could help me, and she goes, "Yeah, I'm going to help you." And then I didn't hear back from her, and I was like, a week went by, and I was like, I need help now. Like, I think I'm going to die. And I Googled recovery, 12-step recovery meetings. And I think one of the things that, this book is, I got like kind of scared when I'm like, oh my gosh, it's out, because I talk a lot about my recovery journey in the book. Um, it's raw. I've never shared some of these stories. So I'm like, well, all the PTA moms are going to know now, And, but I Googled recovery meetings and I found a meeting that when my husband was at work and my daughters were at school that I could go to. And when I went into that meeting, I heard hope. I heard there's a solution. And I kept going back. That was 2016. By the grace of God, I got my sobriety and it gave me my life back. But just like we work on our resilience, just like we work on sparking more joy, like we work on our health and get into the gym, I have to actively work on my sobriety program. I was on the phone with my mom the other day and she goes, "Where are you going?" And I said, "Oh, I'm going to one of my meetings." And she goes, "You still go to those things?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I'm still sober." So it's been such a journey of learning. I don't take it for granted. You know, anybody out there struggling with any kind of addiction, I've learned that addiction doesn't discriminate. Doesn't matter where you come from, how old you are, male, female, what nationality you are. Addiction does not discriminate. And what I've learned is connection is the opposite of addiction. And
mhm.
so if you're struggling, don't do it alone. Like, reach out for help. Reach out to me. If you've and I sincerely mean that. I've had people that have reached out to me, and it's like anything I can do to help, that actually helps me stay sober.
Yeah, that's huge. And I know that the first time you were on the podcast, we talked about that, even you being in the hospital bed after your accident. And it's always been helping other people that has given you strength and has gotten you through this. And it sounds like even to this day, you helping people with their sobriety comes right back to you in strength as well. So I love that. It's so, I mean, I'm fortunate to not have been in that position, but it's just so admirable because I feel like it's one of the hardest things for people to live through and to work through, and that shame and that guilt, and getting to that place where you can start to rebuild trust. And I know you talk about that in the book as well. Did that come when you got honest with yourself, or did that come through a process afterwards? The whole rebuilding trust with yourself.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I remember when I went to my husband who, he's retired now, but he was a lieutenant commander with the California Highway Patrol, and
Mm.
going to him and admitting I was like, "I think I have a problem." He was like, "Oh, no, 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 you don't have a problem." I'm like, "No, I think I do." I knew deep down that it
Mhm.
was a problem. And I knew that I had to get radically honest, because if I couldn't trust myself, who was going to trust me? And then I would say I was almost 6 years sober, and I wasn't going to as many meetings. I wasn't connecting to God as often as I should. I wasn't praying nearly enough. I wasn't connecting to community nearly enough. I was just go, 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 gritting it out. I had one thing after another happen. And, with addiction, it's just waiting for you. It's sitting there doing push ups, just
Mm.
waiting for the time to get in. And if we're not actively working on ourselves mentally, spiritually, physically, the perfect time will come and we could slip. Now, I had just gotten back from a trip. I had paid an assistant, and I have an amazing assistant now. Thank goodness, thank goodness. But I had paid this lady. I've learned a lot on this entrepreneurial journey. Paid her up front, and she disappeared on me. Got to Texas and was surprised with the one day that I had off. I hadn't had a vacation in years. And I thought, well, I'm going to have a day off, a day. And they scheduled me to speak to my brother's lawyer about his death sentence. And so the day off, it was just rehashing everything
Mm.
from our childhood and the murder and all this stuff. I mean, it was just thing after thing after thing after thing. And I got back home and I took a pill that I had left over from a surgery. And I knew as soon as I swallowed the pill, I thought, I just lost my sobriety. And I wish I could say, oh, and I was just feeling great. And I was like, I'm going to bed. And the next morning I woke up, and that scared me because I've never had a problem with pills. And it really scared me. And I knew I had to get honest about it, or how could I trust myself? And
Mm.
so I woke up the next morning and I called my sponsor in tears. And I said, I really effed up. And I said that, and she knew something was up if I cussed. And I was just crying. And she goes, what happened? I said, I took a pill for the wrong reason. I took it because I just wanted to escape my thoughts and ease the pain and stuff it down instead of dealing with it or reaching out or calling. I didn't even think about it. I just took this pill, and I had to start over with my sobriety date. And so that was a big wake up call for me. And I had so much shame about that. But you know what? It's like, by coming in and admitting it, I had to start my days over, start everything over. I had to start from scratch on like everything. And it was good for me. And I don't take it for granted. It really scared me. And so I thought, I've got to stay in the middle of my community of sober sisters. I think it's so important, whether you're, you know, recovering from any addiction, or whether you're just an entrepreneur that's struggling. I mean, to get in the middle, to have people that you can talk to, that you can say me too, that you can brainstorm, that you can lean in on. I mean, Angie, I'm so grateful for you. You and I can just talk about like our stuff, our events, our podcast, our, speaking, what we're doing. And it just feels good to be able to talk to you and go, hey, yeah, I know how that is. Anything you
Mhm.
need, I got you. Let me know. I'll put it in my newsletter. I'll help sell tickets, like whatever I can do. I think it's important to really have a community that you can help and you can support, because it's not as much fun going through life without the people that bring joy, that bring wisdom into your life. So,
Yeah.
first of all, thank you for being that kind of person that does for me. Thank you.
Oh, right back at you. And it's so true. And I think whether it's in the space of addiction, like you said, entrepreneurship, anything at all, I have learned, and I'm similar to you, this, recovering people pleaser and always thought I could do it all on my own. I needed no help. And man, it is easier and it is so much more fun doing life with people. Like I said, whether it's building business, whether it's community, anything like that, I can't highlight that enough.
Oh,
Do
yeah. I
you
mean, I was just on the phone with one of my best friends last night, and she's like, well, she texts me, she goes, who's helping you right now with your book launch? And I'm like, well, I have a great team, but my web guy is out of town and he's on a cruise with no internet. And my event planner is sick. I was like, so it's me just coming up with stuff. And she's like, let me help you. Let's get
Mhm.
on a call. And she's like, you know what? Give me some information about your book. I'll share it with my community. I'll share it in my newsletter. And like I have you that's like, let me have you back on the show. And I'm like, oh my goodness, thank you so much. Um, and it is more fun when you can do things together. You and I are so much alike. I think
I
the
know.
more we've gotten to know each other, I'm like, oh yeah, you're my soul sister.
Well, and it's like not I wanted to have you back on the show, yes, because I want your book to be out there, but more importantly, because it's what people need. There is such a search for joy out there, whether it's through difficulties or just in general. And to the point where I think some people don't even really know what joy is.
Yeah.
I say this all the time when, in my book, I talked about where I was, and I would have never said I was unhappy. I really didn't feel unhappy, but I surely wasn't like, to use your word, sparking joy. I wasn't like, "Ah, this is the life. Like I am fulfilled every single day." And I think that's the norm for a lot of people is that you can just go through the day and no, it's not bad. And yes, there are these, moments here and there, but like, are you really taking responsibility for the joy that you want in your life?
Oh, I totally agree. And I was right there. I mean, I just getting outside, taking a
Mhm.
break, properly eating and nourishing your body. Like, I really had to get back to basics, which was, uh, why do I feel like crap? Oh, because I haven't even taken a break to eat.
Yeah.
Um, I had my event planner tell me, she's like, Amberly, you really need to get out and do more networking in your area, because I grew up in Texas, but my main network is in LA. I lived there for
Mhm.
31 years. And I was like, oh, yeah, because I'm in my office or I am traveling, speaking in a different state, city, country for events. And I see a lot of my friends at these events, especially that are into self development. But I was like, oh, yeah, actually get out and meet people in the community? And I was like, well, I have one really good friend here. She lives down the street. You know what I mean? And just getting out with her and going for a walk the other
Yeah.
day, I'm like, yes, this is what life is about. Feeling the
Mhm.
sun, being in the weather, walking with a friend, brainstorming together. And then it can be something like yesterday, my daughter got home from school and she goes, she's so funny. She goes, Mom, let's go fishing. And she goes, well, actually, no, let's go get our nails done. She goes, actually, no, go help me clean my truck. I need to detail my truck. So it brought me so much joy to ride in the truck with her with the windows rolled down. And she had on some like country hip hop that is hilarious. and her singing and getting and washing the truck together. She's like, "Yeah, if you're gonna ride in my truck, you gotta help me clean it." But we just had so much fun. Then we get back and she's like, "Mom, will you make me a surprise snack?" Now, that brings me joy getting to put together
Mhm.
a fun little snack for her and giving it to her, and it brought her joy to get this little snack. So it's the little things, and it's like you said
Yeah.
earlier, and I said earlier too, it's like those moments of joy and really cherishing those moments.
Mhm. And I think they get easier when you start doing them. When you start putting them into your life, you get that little taste of it, and then you crave more, and that kind of compounds them, and you seek them more. And you said something earlier that I want to go back to, escapism with the addiction. Do you believe that knowing what brings you joy and taking responsibility for putting it in your life is what will navigate people away from the escapism?
I think so, but for me in particular, that is a huge piece. Um, Making sure, like, I know that if I have too many back-to-back calls where I'm sitting in one place, or it's high intensity and I'm speaking at an event and they want me to speak all 3 days, or things that are going to like cause or kind of flare me up, flare the nerve pain up,
Mhm.
or something like that. I know that it's hard. So I schedule my day differently. I remember halt, never get too hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, because
Mm.
when I'm any of those things, I want to escape. Like I'm not joyful. And so I think that yes, creating a life that you don't want to escape from is important, but I also know that I would not be able to do the things that I get to do to stay sober, to get to be here with you, to get to travel and speak, to run my own events if I didn't have a connection to God. And
Mhm.
I just have surrendered. I used to try to do it all and think I just got to grit it out, and I thought, no, I need to stay closer to God and um, ask God for help. And I even have on my desk, like, I anchor myself to God. I also have written on here, God doesn't waste pain, to
Mhm.
just as reminders. And I think, did I show you my frog? Did I show you
No.
this little frog?
No. Oh, I
Isn't this
love
the cutest thing?
Mhm.
My daughter made this for me. She, like, sculpted and painted this for me,
So
and
cute.
you're probably going, "Why are you showing me a frog on your desk?" Well, frog means fully rely on God.
Oh, yeah.
So I love that my daughter knows the importance of how I fully rely on God and brought me a frog.
Yeah. I love that. There was a yogurt place called that, and that's what it
Yes.
stood for. Yeah, 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 yeah. I love that. That's so sweet. The faith conversation for me is like I could go on for hours about that, and I always say it's where you give your uncontrollables. I mean, more
Mhm.
of everything else too, but things that you can't control, why on earth would you hold on to those? Why would you allow them to take up bandwidth, mental capacity? Like they just have to go somewhere else. And for me, that's where I give them to God, right? That's the prayer. And it's such an easy, I think it's come to me after some time to easily recognize when I'm not in alignment with my faith. Oh, if you're going to worry, it's like, am I faithful or not? Do I have faith? Okay, well, if I have faith, then I don't worry. And I was talking to somebody this morning, one of my clients, and she was like, well, what happens? She's really strong faith, conversations with God all day long. And she said, well, what happens if I plan this event and something happens because the world seems a little uncertain right now? And who knows what could happen 6 months from now? And I'm like, what's your faith say? Do you
Mhm.
trust God or not? And she was like, well, I do. And I'm like, well, then why are you worried about what's going to happen 6 months from now? Like you
Yeah.
can't control that. And it's such, I don't know, for me, it's such an easy out of worrying. It's
It
just an easy
is,
shift.
and, I have to tell you the story sometime about the resistance I had for one of my unstoppable, Success Summit events that I
Mm,
do every year. Ah, I just found the necklace that one of my mastermind members had made for me, and she wrote on there, "God won,"
Mm,
because, oh my goodness, I am telling you, anything that could have gone wrong was going wrong. The link to buy tickets wasn't working, and I didn't know. So for months, I was like, "Wow, this is bizarre. Like, I'm not selling
mhm.
one ticket and I'm promoting it." Well, I didn't know the website was broken.
Ugh.
Then my husband, who is like super healthy, had to go in for an emergency surgery. And I thought, okay, well, I'll have 2 days before I fly out to nurse him and do. No, the surgery went wrong. So he had to have another surgery the day that I was flying out to go do this event. Like I am telling you, the music wouldn't work. AV was like, we don't know what's going on. It's the virtual part of the event was stopped and we had to do some. I mean, it was unbelievable. And it was so faith filled and such ended up being such a beautiful event. And just out of my mouth came, God won. Like
Mm,
God always wins. I just kept going. I just kept going. I was like, you know what? I'm trusting that God's got me through this. And I really pray before I ever speak on an interview and especially before I speak on stage. I do push-ups and prayer. That's what helps me. The push-ups get my body moving, it gets the endorphins going, it gets any kinda anxiety I might have out, but it's really the prayer and asking God, "Please speak through me. Please," and I think if we just pause long enough to listen, God's always there.
yeah. So true and beautiful. I am thinking about all the questions. I swear I get on a call with you and it just kind of goes wherever it wants to go. I have so many questions I wanted to ask you about this book. And I'm like, oh my gosh, where did the time go as we're running out of time here? But I think we've talked a lot about, the hardships and people trying to find joy in that space, right? It's a choice. You get to make the choice. You can have it coexist in the same space as other things going on. But for the person who's listening and going, gosh, I don't even know if I have joy in my life and I don't even know what joy would look like. Let's have a quick conversation around that. For me, I tie it to values. The first thing that I have all my clients do is you have to know what your values are because you have to know how to fill yourself up. So whether that's time with God, time in nature, physical activity, creativity, you have to know what those values are and what fills you up. And if you know those, then you get them in your life every day, brings you joy. So,
Mhm.
what does it look like for you to one, know that, hey, I'm in a state of joy, like I got joy in today, there was joy in my journey. And two, how do you kind of go through that process of what is it that's going to fill you up and bring you that joy?
I think you said it perfectly with knowing your values.
Mm,
But also, if you think about like when we're kids and you look at children playing or
yeah.
I mean, they are joyous with, being out in nature, not necessarily having the best toys or whatever. And I remember when I was a kid, that was the first moment I kind of experienced joy and I didn't know what that was necessarily, but it was the moment that, on Friday nights, after the football game, we would go to Dairy Queen, and I don't know why my mom let me go with it. It was like the band members and the cheerleaders and some of the people that attended the game and the football players, and they would put money in the jukebox, and I would just dance, and then somebody would pick me up on the table because I was little, and I would just dance and it felt so great. And I would look into other people's eyes and I would see their eyes sparkling and clapping. And then they would start dancing along. And I thought, this is what I want. And so I remember, as a kid, really searching out that feeling and doing things that did bring me joy. And to me,
Mm,
it was dancing. I didn't have an easy childhood. I come from, was sexually abused by my stepfather. And I thought, well, I want to do what makes me feel good. What brings joy. And so I sought after that. I don't know how I knew to do that, but I would have conversations with God when I ran. I was in track, and that was when I was most closely connected with God. It wasn't actually in church. We went to church every Sunday, but it was when I was out in nature, running around the track, just talking to God and dancing and strive to make good grades because that made me feel like I was accomplishing something, and helping other people. That always brought me joy, and I'll tell you, I had a friend, you know how there's cliques in high school, and I guess I was
Mhm.
in the popular clique, and one of the girls said, "Amberly, you can't keep talking to all these people. Like, you're talking to the nerds, and you're talking to the band members, and you're talking to the geek," like, naming all the cliques. And I said, "Well, I'm gonna talk to everybody. I'm gonna be friends with anybody I wanna be with. I'm gonna be friend those are all my friends." She said, "Well, then you can't be friends with us." And I said, "Okay." Well, a couple of days went by, and I didn't stop talking to everybody and saying hi and smiling at them. And she came up, she goes, "Well, I guess you're not gonna stop talking to them. I guess you can still be our friend." You know what I mean? I'm like,
She's the
"Oh,
rule
thank
maker.
you."
Thank you. Because your joy was contagious, right? Yeah, so I'm hearing you and even you describing the washing your daughter's truck with her and going in the car, the windows down. It's like, I want people to be hearing right now. It's like the things that put a smile on your face, the things that maybe make your heart feel really good, give you that warm, fuzzy feeling in your belly. I mean, for me, sometimes it's literally like I will start smiling without even thinking anything, and that's like a sign, right, that you're in this state of joy. And I think what I want people to know most as they're listening to this podcast is like, go do something today, go take responsibility for the joy that you want in your life. Just go find one thing to do that's going to put a smile on your face, because that's a good addiction. Like, that is okay to get addicted to, and you start filling yourself up and life just feels differently. um, we've kind of talked all about your book, but I want give me a sentence. Give me this one thing, because this is what's important. I want people to understand is that there's a lot of people who write books for a lot of different reasons, and obviously they're trying to educate and share their knowledge, but yours is just very, very meaningful. And like I said, raw, and there's so much sincerity with like wanting people to just get this, get that you can have this joy. So in a simple sentence, why did you write the book?
Well, I want people to know that joy is possible through life's ups and downs, and we can be in the present moment and we can be more resilient. It is possible. And I share things that are so raw and real, which was scary. It's scary to like put things out there. But when I think like that, that's selfish of me. That's ego. That's edging God out. I wrote this book not because to tell my story. I share some stories that are vulnerable, but I share so I'm coming from a place of where I was shameful, where I was sad, where I was depressed, where I was on the brink of burnout, and all these strategies and actionable steps that I've been able to implement in my life and really spark more joy, that it is possible. I want other people to know that we can be joy sparkers, and it's a ripple effect. And so my hopes and my sincere wish for people to pick up this book is that they can have a more fulfilled life, a meaningful, energized, joyful life, no matter what.
Yeah. And I feel that so much. And I hope anyone who's listening feels that too. To kind of carry on with that theme, you're doing a lot with the book. And this is one of the things, this is where we connect so well, is that you're not content with someone just reading the book and getting that. Like, you're like, I've got a book club, I'm doing all these extra bonuses. Like, you really want to make sure that what you have to share reaches them. So help me explain. I'm going to put the Amazon link out here for people to buy the book, but you do have some bonuses. You have a book club.
Yeah,
Give us some
I'm
goods.
so excited about the book club because a big part of having joy is community and connection. And so I wanted to create a space where we can read together. You can come in and we can connect. I'm gonna be sharing insights and answering Q&A, but it's really about that connection piece. I feel
Mm.
like when we can connect with others, and even if it's we can kind of spur people along to be more avid readers, and I think that accountability is key as well. But yeah, and you're the first person I'm telling. I haven't even shared this, but I decided to have a virtual book party,
Oh,
and I'm giving away, for the book party, it's gonna be February 13th, so I don't know if this is gonna be out before then or not, but
we're gonna
I'm
have
like,
to
"Well,
make it come out.
what can I do to make this fun?" I was like, "You know what? Okay, I'm gonna give away." I've got joy necklaces. One side says unstoppable, the other side says choose joy, and you wear
Mm.
what's like, what you need in the day close to your heart. And if you want to wear, choose joy out to the world, and a symbol of, your spark of joy and light in the world. I'm giving away pins, signed books. I'm like, oh, swag, hoodies. I have joy hoodies and hats, and I'm giving away a seat into my mastermind program, which is
Ooh.
that's a big one. So I
Mhm.
wanted to be like, okay, well, how can I make this fun, like a real party where people are going
Yeah.
to get stuff? So yeah, I'm doing the book club, doing the book party, giving away bonuses. So yeah, it's a lot, but hey, I'm like, what else can I give?
But it's fun. It's so fun. I mean, I get that, it's just a different motivation and I love to get people involved. So, well, I can't wait. We released it here that you're having a book launch party, a virtual book launch party. So now we're really gonna have to get this episode out and make sure that people know about it for sure.
Well, thank you. And I can't wait to have you on my podcast too.
I know I'm bummed that I'm not gonna be able to catch you in person when I come through next week, but
I
maybe another time.
know that I'm going to be gone when you're going to be here.
I know. I know it. I know. We will make it happen another time. So, Amberly, thank you, thank you, thank you for coming on, sharing more about your book, Joy Through the Journey. And I will put all the links out there and all the information, the book club and all those goodies. AmberlyLago.com is where you can find lots of details about everything that we talked about. And again, just go out there, find your joy, choose it, spark joy, as Amberly would say, and make it happen. Thanks, Amberly.
Thank you.